Hi everyone. Today I want to make a video about tobacco, which is a largely misunderstood plant. You probably associate it with an early death as a result of government-funded public health campaigns, or maybe you have a family member who's checked out early as a result of cigarette smoking. But if you haven't noticed, governments don't actually care about their citizens' health. If they did, sugary drinks would also have pictures of dead people on them who died of diabetes, and there would be Surgeon General warnings on McDonald's menus. Car dealerships would have pictures out front of car crash victims. So when it comes to tobacco, I don't think that governments are trying to diminish people's use of it for the reason we're led to believe, which is public health. I think tobacco grounds and centers its users, making them less susceptible to propaganda and mind control. But if you're interested in learning more about this aspect of tobacco, I would suggest reading the book The Health Benefits of Tobacco by Dr. William Campbell Douglas. The reason tobacco is not flat out banned is that it is a major cash cow for governments, especially commercial cigarettes, because they add chemicals so that they're as addictive as possible. And I believe that other substances are added to counteract the positive grounding impact that real, unadulterated tobacco can have. I think there are some added heavy metals in there, and who knows what else. In Bill Cooper's book, Beyond a Pale White Horse, I'll quote, "Tobacco fields have been fertilized with radioactive tailings from uranium mines, resulting in a tremendous increase in lip, mouth, throat, and lung cancer. If you look at the incidence of lung cancer per capita before 1950 and compare it to now, are those who smoke committing suicide, or are they being murdered?" End quote. I think this is why, if you want to smoke, treat the tobacco like you treat your food. You want to find out where it comes from before you consume it. As human beings, we've become accustomed to be able to be exposed to certain amounts of smoke in a variety of situations in life. Fire is basically what made human life possible, as it kept us warm and cooked our food. For instance, traditional tobacco has been used by American Indian societies for centuries as a medicine used to promote physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. And in these Native American communities, where they basically had to fight against the elements for survival, it was a lot of added work to harvest tobacco plants, which goes to show how much value they placed on it, and for good reasons. In many teachings, the smoke from burned tobacco has a purpose of carrying thoughts and prayers to the spirit world or to the Creator. It's an amplifier of intentions and is a grounding medicinal herb. The use of natural tobacco consumed via pipes or cigars has historically been perceived by saner cultures in saner time periods as something that reinvigorates the spirit and improves psychological health. The main reason most people smoke is that it provides solace. It makes the hardships of daily life just a little more bearable. This is why it was given to soldiers in the trenches. This is why it's associated with blue-collar jobs, because it makes these insanely difficult experiences just a little bit easier. But like any medicine, it should not be abused. Tobacco was historically consumed in moderation and enjoyed out of a pipe. Cigars came later, but have also been around for centuries, and the smoke in both of these cases is not to be inhaled, and chemical-laden paper is not consumed with the tobacco in these cases, as is the case with industrial-grade cigarettes. If you haven't tried it, and I don't recommend, try inhaling pipe or cigar smoke. It's not pleasurable. It literally hurts your lungs. But then, around the middle of the 20th century, people began inhaling filtered, chemically altered tobacco smoke deep into their lungs several times per day. The filter and chemicals in an industrial-grade cigarette make inhaling smoke deeper into the lungs and holding it there for longer possible. You barely even feel the smoke or taste the poor quality tobacco, as there are agents that mask the taste. I'll give you an example. Just last weekend, I went to Bordeaux for a work seminar. I had a few drinks with my work colleagues, and at one point One coworker offered me a cigarette, and I obliged, and I lit one up, and it tasted like chemicals. It tasted like paper. I couldn't taste any tobacco. And at this point, I am a regular pipe and cigar smoker. I very rarely smoke cigarettes. I used to smoke cigarettes though. And after having that cigarette, the next day I got home and I lit up my pipe, and I didn't taste anything. I tasted hot air. And it was very aromatic tobacco, where the taste is undeniable. But I didn't taste anything. And it took 48 hours to be able to taste my pipe tobacco again after having one cigarette. So I think that is a relevant anecdote revealing to what extent these coffin nails are modified so that, the people who smoke them don't actually realize how toxic they are. On top of that, like many pleasurable things in modern society, industrial cigarettes are typically abused because they've been deliberately altered to be more addictive. But even aside from all that, too much of any one thing will inevitably cause harm. And most people that are considered smokers, they'll have like anywhere from 10 to 30 cigarettes a day. That's like the average, I think, among smokers. But if you were to apply that same number to like anything else, it would be super poisonous. Like if you were to drink 10 to 30 coffees within the course of your day, you'll probably have a heart attack. But at the same time, the same substance, 1 to 2 coffees a day, actually can improve your health in some ways. Same thing with like cookies. If you were to have 10 to 30 cookies a day, you'll probably get diabetes and have a variety of other debilitating health issues. Imagine if you had 10 to 30 drinks a day. I'm not even going to get into that, but 1 to 2 alcoholic drinks a day statistically lengthens your lifespan. So the poison lies in the type and the quantity. I'll even speculate that non-filtered rolled cigarettes are less harmful than your modern filtered cigarettes, since the smoke is unfiltered and there are less chemicals. You don't inhale as deeply, don't hold it in as long, and you don't smoke as much. This also means that less carbon monoxide enters your organism at the end of the day. It's a fact that an insufficiently oxygenated environment is a breeding ground for all sorts of disease. I live in France, which is a country of heavy smokers, and the majority of heavy cigarette smokers are over the age of 60, who I know personally. I have a big family that lives here, cousins, uncles, and many of them are smokers, but the majority of those over 60, who I know, have had stents, or heart attacks, or strokes at some point. Some of my friends' parents have died as a result of excessive cigarette smoking, lung cancer, and the like. My father-in-law, who was a 2-pack-a-day smoker, nearly died of a massive heart attack 3 years ago, and survived thanks to a triple bypass heart surgery. My grandmother died of emphysema and was a heavy cigarette smoker her whole life. My great-grandfather, on the other hand, was a heavy pipe smoker his whole life and lived well into his 90s. His son, who was my grandfather, is still alive and well at 92, and he explained how his dad would actually smoke in the car with the windows rolled up during Cleveland winters. Now, I'm not advocating to do this, of course, but he was also a cigar and pipe smoker, by the way, for many, many years. So tobacco certainly can kill you early if it's abused, which is the case with many medicines, by the way. Even abusing pipes and cigars can put you at risk for mouth, throat, and tongue cancers, especially if they're smoked incorrectly, where one puffs excessively and the smoke is hotter than it ideally should be. I think it really comes down to temperature. People who get sunburned all the time are more likely to develop skin cancer. People who drink scalding hot drinks are more likely to get throat cancers. People who are literally burning their lungs throughout the day, lungs being sensitive organs that are not meant to be repeatedly burned or exposed to such heat, are more likely to get lung cancer. The mouth, on the other hand, is not as fragile as the lungs as far as heat is concerned. We were meant to eat warm foods. The mouth can withstand some heat, but if you overdo it, you're going to have problems. In fact, in the pipe smoking world, you want the smoke to be as cool as possible when it enters your mouth, because that is when all of the tastes of the tobacco become recognizable. It's the same thing with food. You could have the most delicious meal in front of you, but if it's too hot or burned, you're not going to taste it. It's going to taste burnt or be painful. Anyways, there is a book written by French doctors called L'art de fumer sans en mourir, which translates to The Art of Smoking Without Dying. And I read it a few years back. In a nutshell, they recommend to not smoke more than twice per day. Don't inhale. Don't smoke until the very end of the cigarette, pipe, or cigar, as the smoke is stronger and more potent. And the tobacco acts also as a filter of sorts. The tobacco at the end, it acts as a filter and collects a lot of the impurities. And lastly, of course, have an otherwise healthy lifestyle. And you may be wondering, why am I talking about this? Well, as a student in Europe over 10 years ago, I became accustomed to smoking cigarettes, as well as joints made of hash and unfiltered tobacco. Tobacco is much more prevalent in European cultures. And at one point, I was smoking 4 unfiltered hash tobacco joints per day until I realized that I wasn't interested in the effect of the cannabis, but the tobacco. I became addicted to the nicotine. So I went back to smoking cigarettes and ended up saving a lot of money because I wasn't spending a fortune on hash. However, when I began learning more about health as a result of my own health issues, I came to terms with the fact that smoking cigarettes on a daily basis is not conducive to physiological health. But I didn't want to eliminate tobacco from my life entirely. So I explored the world of pipes and cigars that I was already sort of accustomed to. I went to a Jesuit high school in Cleveland when I lived there. And it was a tradition on the last day of high school that the teachers and the students all light up a stogie and smoke together. My dad had the odd cigar here and there growing up. He was never a smoker. But I associated cigars with celebration after a hard day's work, and it was all very positive, and I enjoyed the taste, the few I had growing up. So I thought about it, and after doing some research and having more cigars, I discovered the pipe, and now I'm an avid pipe smoker. It's more of a daily thing rather than spending a fortune on a 15 euro cigar every day. So I'm a pipe and cigar smoker now, and I don't feel the need to smoke cigarettes anymore, and I realize how toxic they are and how I feel after smoking a pipe or a cigar compared to how I feel smoking a cigarette. After I have a pipe or a cigar, I feel invigorated, feel refreshed, whereas after a cigarette, I feel like I just took minutes off my life. And during this educational experience, I discovered that once tobacco's image in modern society was destroyed as a result of commercial cigarette abuse, pipe and cigar smoking was largely thrown into that same category. So the baby was thrown out with the bathwater. And I don't believe that pipes and cigars entirely deserve that reputation, because if they're used correctly, tobacco is a plant with a vast array of beneficial qualities. I see pipes and cigars as sort of like dancing with the devil. All right, it's sort of dangerous, but it's like playful if you don't go past dancing. Commercial cigarettes, on the other hand, are like getting roofied and date raped by the devil. It's a perverted way to consume this plant. In a similar light, the act of sex is sacred and creates life as we know it, but its perverted forms are pornography and prostitution, which are degenerate activities that play on human weakness and don't typically end well for those who participate in them. Anything sacred can be, and unfortunately typically is, perverted. Vaping, where you suck on a concoction of chemicals via a USB stick, is another form of perversion. So if you're going to do something, do it right. Just because a lot of other people are doing something does not make it right. If you're going to smoke tobacco in moderation, not paper and chemicals. And I think most commercial cigarette smokers don't even know what tobacco tastes like. They do know what a powerful nicotine rush feels like, though. But the pipe itself, and the cigar as we know it, for that matter, is a metaphor. And I think it shows to go right to what's essential. You're only smoking tobacco in these cases. If you were to come upon tobacco seeds, grow a plant, and harvest it, that would be the way you consume it with the least amount of resources at hand. And this is the way man consumed it for thousands of years, up until just a little over 100 years ago. And that's just a blip in time when you take a step back. And when we mess with nature, we pay the consequences. We're not above nature. Vincent van Gogh, who I'm currently reading about, was an avid pipe smoker, and he saw tobacco as therapy, as he was this tortured, mentally unstable genius. And they didn't have Xanax at the time. He had alcohol, tobacco, and painting. And the story goes that when Van Gogh stumbled back to his bed after being shot in the stomach, he actually asked for his pipe to be given to him out of his coat pocket. And tobacco is a meditative therapeutic tool. That's how it should be used. And it's also a double-edged sword. It has the capacity to end your life early. But it also has the capacity to encourage thought that is grounded in nature, which inspires action that is grounded in nature. Maybe all this is just my way to justify my addiction to nicotine, though. But either way, I wish you all a fantastic day. As I light my pipe.